Okie doke. Welcome to Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions. Let me go right to my PowerPoint. I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron. I want to first ask you, consider how your life would be different today if you couldn't read. So what I'm passionate about doing is equipping heroic parents and teachers with an effective literacy program to remediate dyslexia so we can close the achievement gap, stop the school to prison pipeline, and prepare kids for success in school and in life. If kids aren't reading by 4th grade, they're at risk of dropping out of high school and going to prison. And now we're getting reports of suicide. And so I really appreciate parents getting on board and helping their children early, getting some early diagnoses of dyslexia. A little bit about my background. I've been an educator for 21 years and a classroom teacher for 10. I didn't learn about dyslexia until one of my professors at the university recommended I join the International Dyslexia Association, of which I'm now a board member in the Tri-County branch here in California. And I learned about Orton Gillingham. Sam Orton and Anna Gillingham had a method of using multisensory techniques to help teach reading. And I also learned about using music to help teach reading and how it accelerates the process. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But I have my doctorate in education, leadership, and administration, and I'm very proud of the hard work that went into 2 master's degrees. I'm an author, an app developer, and I am a curriculum writer. So I'd like you to meet my family. My husband and I have been married for 31 years, and my daughter recently got married, actually before COVID, with in our California wineries called Temecula. And so here's her husband and his son, and I have 2 adult sons also. So I also am a proud grandparent of a grandpuppy. I'm a grandpuppy parent, whatever. We love our little doggy. So welcome, thank you for taking time from your busy day. I just want to say that 65.9% of students fail to reach grade level reading by 4th grade, and they rarely catch up. And so they're the ones at risk of dropping out of high school, going to prison, and unfortunately, suicides happening, especially now with COVID. So the problem is parents and teachers don't know how to recognize dyslexia. There's not enough budget in the school's budget to give additional training for dyslexic children, for how to recognize dyslexia, how to assess for it. And the teachers are at their wits' ends. They're doing all they can do, and they just don't know what else they can do. And so children are acting out in bad behavior. They're not wanting to get online with this online environment. They're not wanting to, now, you know, when people come in late, I don't know how to admit them since I'm already conducting this.
You should still be able to click on admit.
Oh, there it is. It came up late. Thank you. So there is a formal definition of dyslexia that hundreds of letters, thousands of letters were written to talk about how we should call dyslexia. Hiya, Debbie. Welcome. So the formal definition is dyslexia is a specific learning disability that's neurobiological in origin. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. But I have a much easier way to tell you that because that's a lot of formal talk, right? So easily stated, I just say dyslexia is neurological in origin, so the brain can be retrained. And it's more of a learning difference than a learning disability. And it affects a student's reading, writing, and speaking. And it affects 1 in 5 kids. So I use the acronym C.O.P.S to explain what's going on and how to help parents. because when we're meeting face to face, we have C.O.P.S on our middle school and high school campuses. The C stands for a crisis. We are in a national reading crisis. And, you know, we have been in this crisis for the past 15 years. This is not new. Our scores are rated annually by the National Association of Educational Progress. They grade us in reading and math. And in spite of a mandate in California, 2015, we had Governor George Brown signed the mandate that we should assess for dyslexia and provide intervention by the 2017-18 school year. Well, the scores at the end, you know, at the end of the year were not showing that we are improving. We have dropped 4 points as fourth graders, and eighth graders have dropped, well, I'm sorry, we have dropped 1 point since 2017, 3 points as eighth graders in 2017. So I want to ask you a question. You can just raise your hand. How many of you ever received a C- in a class and you were just so glad to get that C- because you never want to see that content again? Anybody? No, you're all straight A students. Okay. You're all, but how many of you ever received a C- in a class that had another level to it and you struggled because other people have received A's and B's, and so you're competing with A and B students? So I experienced both of those. So a C- is how our nation views proficient. So it's interesting to know that 2/3 of the students across
Victoria,
the nation,
come here.
oops, mute yourselves, please. 2/3 of the students across this nation are not proficient, and 1/3 of those students are at the F level. So let's see what's going on here. Go, go, go. This is a picture of one of our students. He came to us last March. He was going into second grade and didn't even know, he was going into second grade and didn't know his letter names and sounds. And so I trained Teresa to work with him. And then in July of last year, he started working with my reading program, step-by-step reading, which uses music. Well, this March, he actually exited special ed for English because he's reading at a fourth grade level and comprehending at a fifth grade level. And it's pretty amazing. His self-esteem has just improved so much. His mom reports that you and his tutor changed his life. This is a miraculous difference, and it still blows me away. So he's continuing with us this year because kids can receive an intervention like a summer school intervention, which is what we often provide, but they can continue with us for the full year and even longer because dyslexic children continue to need intervention. So I have a dyslexia simulation for you. If you would take out, how many, you guys have a piece of paper next to you, hopefully? Pad of paper? I want you to read this paragraph in blue. And I'm going to give you this dyslexia simulation. I'm going to have you look at the words that have 2 or more vowels. And then cross out the second vowel and rewrite that word. So for example, laughter, I'm going to cross out the U and I'm going to rewrite it as laughter. Go ahead and do that exercise. I'm going to give you a minute and it's going to give you a little bit of an idea what dyslexia feels like. Okay, that's 1 minute. How was that? Pretty tricky? So here are the words down here. You could just compare what you wrote to how this is. When we teach dyslexic children, and all children benefit from the parent or teacher using highlighters and markers and colors and realia, tangible things to help teach. When I'm teaching the students the OR sound, the bossy R, I teach the word cork, and I have cork. And you just pull out things that have those letters in them. It's a great way to help the kids as you teach them. So true or false, put in the chat, or you could give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Fourth graders in Los Angeles are reading better than the national average. Okay, that is false. In fact, the fourth graders in California are reading not only below national averages, but we have some of the lowest scores in California with the most dollars spent in Los Angeles. So 66% of our students fail to reach grade level reading by fourth grade, and they rarely catch up. And it's interesting to note that 2/3 of those students will end up in prison or on welfare. So this impacts all of our communities. It could be our neighbors, our neighborhood, the neighbors next door. So here is a second dyslexia simulation. I'm going to have you look at the letters in this gray, the words in the gray, and the instruction is change every T to a D and every E to an I, and then rewrite those words. And I'm going to give you another minute to do that simulation. So for example, there would become, the T's become D, so it's DHIRI. Okay, go ahead and take another minute to do that. That's a minute. When I first did these webinars, I did them where I couldn't see people. So I had everybody write in the chat. How did they like that? So go ahead and write in the chat if that was difficult, if you can relate it to anything else in your life. But that is another reason why we like to chunk information that we give when we teach things. We don't want to give, when I'm teaching the bossy R's, I'm not going to teach AR, OR, UR, IR, ER. I'm not going to teach them all together. I have a strategy of how to present each one individually. So we need to break things up for the students and really try to make it easy for them to learn. Here's what those words would look like if you want to compare what you wrote. And it's kind of interesting because the way this looks is often how kids write, and we can't understand what they're writing. I've had to ask students read to me what they wrote because they couldn't even read their own writing. As an example of that, here is a sixth grader that I had in a summer school program. This student, his mom was ready to sue the school district. Well, not this student, but another sixth grader. The mom was ready to sue the school district because her son was reading at the low third grade level and he was going to be entering middle school. And she worked at the school district, so that made it really awkward for her. But she was so frustrated. And after being in our reading program for 6 weeks, because it was a summer school program, he gained 3 years in reading vocabulary, comprehension, and reading fluency. So she was amazed. He went into special ed resource, but he was able to now keep up with the peers and understand what the teacher was saying. So here is, these sentences are part of my screening that I give students to see how they know, if they know how to write unfamiliar words, because dyslexic kids will memorize, and by the time they reach middle and high school, they know how to spell words because they've memorized them. They don't sound them out. This is the clam sat on the bottom of the ocean. They rushed into the cottage in the nick of time. We gathered around the campfire and told ghost stories. Pittsfield has a population of about 50,000. A conference was held to determine the future course of action. I'd love to share this mound of donuts with my cousin and you. Now, I repeated these sentences several times, but you can see the students forget to capitalize the beginning of their sentences. They don't put punctuation in. Their letters are not the same size, they're not consistent. So this student also most likely has dysgraphia, and part of the Orton-Gillingham strategy we teach we start the lessons teaching them how to write their letters. This is what dyslexia looks like in the adult world, in the workplace. So this was a woman who worked at an elderly care center. I was having lunch there with my elderly friend and her husband. So she gave me a receipt and she gave Dale his receipt. She rhymed Dale with pale, and I corrected her. I told her how you spell Dale, but she couldn't spell dollar. She had lowercase for dining room, but she spelled it incorrectly, uppercase for room. So these are little red flags that you can see when people write. And I've had adults tell me that they've had people help them fill out their job applications, and they felt like a liar. So, and this one gentleman 15 years ago, when I started using music, he said, "I'm so glad that you're carrying the baton to use music with reading." So now compare this writing sample to the 6th grade writing sample. This is a 10th grader, and he has those signs of dysgraphia, which the letters aren't the same size, but his dyslexia is also evident. He doesn't punctuate all his sentences. He did 3. He doesn't capitalize all his sentences. And his writing is actually worse than the 6th grader. But what I want to show you, which is really interesting, this is how he assessed for intelligence. He is above the average curve for intelligence. So dyslexic kids have average to high in IQ. And it's so funny because so often their teachers or parents say they're not trying hard enough or they feel dumb, and they're not. They just need the help that they need. Hey, Elisa, welcome. Go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Yes, yes.
We're just getting started. Well, we're about a fourth
Oh.
through.
Well, I think my internet had cut out, so I was at the beginning and I might have needed to get readmitted.
Got it.
I've only just joined, so hopefully I can catch up.
I'm sorry, I meant to say Anna, not Lisa.
Oh,
Okay, so anyway, these are the reading scores. When I do an assessment for students, I do a cognitive assessment and then I do an academic assessment. And he's a 10th grader. He's ready to take do his driver's permit in California. He had his reading, his rate was at a 10th grade level. His accuracy was at an 8th grade level. His average was a 9th grade level, but his excellent comprehension, greater than 12th grade. This is what makes him look like an average kid. And so when the teachers have low students, they don't give the average kids the attention they need. But because I did an outside assessment of this student, and we showed that there was a 2-year discrepancy here with his intelligence, he immediately got his name put on the top of the pile. When they're doing the state testing, he got the intervention. right away. So it pays to get some outside assessments before you wait for the schools to do your assessments. So here's an example of words he could not sound out because they're unfamiliar. And without knowing phonemic awareness, he couldn't sound out bees, bake, kelp, peas, blut, beet, duck, duck, moisten, and maple. And you're not dyslexic if you couldn't sound those out either, because when I started learning about phonics in my children's kinder and first grades, it was a foreign language to me. It was something that had been so far in my past. So, but these are what kids are learning. And by 10th grade, he should know these. So the other interesting point about this student was when he wrote his words, he said every letter name because he knew he wasn't writing where I could read his writing, and he was so right. Look at all, I mean, can you imagine teachers having to grade work like this? It's so hard. So these are the words he got wrong. These are the words he got right. Acrobat, otherwise, fantastic, permission, reflection. So has he memorized those words? Probably. So O stands for opportunities. We can provide our students the opportunities when we use a multisensory reading program. I want to ask you, how many of you, should just raise your hand, learn better when you're seeing something? How many of you learn better when you're hearing something? Maybe a book on tape. How many of you learn better when you have hands-on? And then how many of you have ever solved a problem when you were telling a friend about it and you just answered your own problem by speaking? So that's how, you know, the brain is the plasticity of the brain. It's so beautiful. We weren't born with a reading brain, but we were born with the brain parts to work together to help us read. So when we use a multisensory reading approach, we're allowing the brain to access all those language centers and work together for comprehension. So this works for the dyslexic child and the non-dyslexic kid. Everybody benefits from doing multisensory because you are working to a student's strength as well as to the weakness. Here are some dyslexic people you may recognize: Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, Tim Tebow, Walt Disney, believe it or not, was dyslexic. Now, Leonardo da Vinci was dyslexic. I'm not saying Mona Lisa was, but when people see Mona Lisa, they automatically think of Leonardo da Vinci. He used to say his favorite pastime was when people would read to him. Now, Leonardo also had dyslexia where he would write backwards in cursive, and he would have to look in the mirror to see what he wrote. So Cher has dyslexia. Albert Einstein had it. I don't know if you know Patricia Polacco, an author, children's book author. Erin Brockovich is an adult book author. And Henry Winkler, all dyslexic. So what's happening in the brain of a dyslexic person? When I learned about this 15 years ago, I learned about Dr. Roger Sperry. He did brain research on seizure patients. What he did was he severed the central part of the brain called the corpus callosum, and he worked with the left and the right sides of the brain independently. And he said the seizures stopped and people could still learn. So what we do, when you imagine if a dyslexic person is reading from the wrong side of the brain, the language center is in the left side of the brain, but they're reading from the right side of the brain predominantly. So the right side of the brain wants to take over the reading and send kelp instead of clap, farm instead of from, maybe step instead of stop. So it wants to send the wrong letters in the wrong order. And it's very slow with the auditory processing because it goes over we call it the lazy referee, the corpus callosum. So when we send music in the left ear, it's going to cross over to the right side of the brain and give the right angular gyrus a job it likes to do, which is based on Dr. Sperry's research. Then we've recorded spelling exercises that are on the app and they play in the right side of the ear, which crossed over to the left angular gyrus. And it's training the language center like Pilates of the brain. And I can't explain it other than I've worked out at the gym, but when I've done Pilates, I got different results. I got targeted results. So I want to show you a picture of the brain just so you could see. On the left, the brain functions are language, math and science, writing, number skills. And so even when I've worked with kids with math, I've let them listen to music in the left ear and it's helped them. And then on the right side of the brain, we have the creativity, the imagination, and music awareness. Just because we're retraining the brain for a student to read doesn't mean we're taking away their creativity. So true or false? 88% of juveniles in the juvenile court system are illiterate. That is a true statement. I have a friend who works at the university teaching criminal justice. And he said when he worked at a state back east, they looked at the illiteracy rate of third graders to determine how many prisons to build. So P stands for prison. In California, we pay $42,000 per inmate. In our California schools, we pay $26,000 for our special ed students and our tax dollars, of course. And then our general ed students take $13,000 of our tax dollars. So our goal as Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions, we want to have kids exit special ed and get diagnosed early so they don't have to go into special ed. Right now, 85% of kids in special ed have dyslexia, and it's hidden under the umbrella of specific learning disability. And auditory processing is there with phonetical, phonological deficits. So true or false? Put a thumbs up or you can write in the chat. Dyslexia has been known to cause ulcers in children. So that is a true statement. I actually met a gal on Facebook who talked to me and said her daughter had developed dyslexia-induced ulcers. Okay, moving right along. Let me see here. So I'm going to pass, I'm going to pass on this simulation so that I just want to show that when we share information to kids, we want to have pictures, we want to have a title so that they get a little bit more clarification of the assignment and what's expected of them. Dyslexic children usually are very shy. They don't want to ask questions of their peers. So S stands for success. What does reading success look like in your home? And do you remember what it looked like when you were a child? How many of you remember taking children to the library? They would bring home a dozen books, and they would reread them and read them to their siblings. And reading was fun. Well, that's not what it's like in the home of a dyslexic child. In fact, someone told me that their granddaughter came over and grandma said, "We're going to read today." And the child said, "I don't want to read. I want to have fun." So dyslexia, the reading is not fun for the dyslexic child. Here's some research about music, how it stops the wandering attention of kids that have ADHD and ADD. So I have a story of a seventh grader that I tutored named Ronnie. I taught him math, and I asked him to listen to music and see if it helped him focus. And oh my gosh, he could focus so much easier. He would tell the class, "I'm adopted, I have ADHD, and I'm dyslexic." But he said, "I take Ritalin to help I take Ritalin for my ADHD, but music helps me learn." And we were able to talk to the school psychologist that year. We wrote music into his IEP, which is his individual plan. And Ronnie had music in his IEP all through middle school and all through high school. So he graduated last year, and that's something you can actually ask your schools to provide for your kids. And if you're homeschooling, try it. You'll really see some good improvements. So people want to know the data. Well, here's some data from 10 years ago. I worked in 5 low-income school districts, and I worked with students from 2nd to 10th grade. I trained college interns, substitute teachers, retired teachers. Now, these are only the some of the scores of people who use music to improve their reading. Some of the kids don't want to use the music, and that's okay. But those who use the music showed this type of improvement. 24 of the students in 1 year showed improvement in reading comprehension, and 28 in 1 year showed the improvement in oral reading quotients. When I say 1 year, it's 1 year when we did intervention for 6 weeks. These are 6-week interventions. So I have a story of Daniela. She was one of our 8th graders, and her mom was in prison. And dyslexia does have a genetic component. It also has a developmental component that I talk about at another time. But she was being raised by her grandfather, who was very interested in learning about the music. And she had made, after 6 weeks, 3-year gains in reading vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. He started crying when he talked to me, and he said, our home used to be a battlefield, and now she gets along with us. She enjoys reading. She does her homework. And he said, are you a doctor? And that's what spoke to my heart. And I felt God was calling me back to school to get my doctorate. With my doctorate, we did 12 weeks because I had 2 internal review boards, and they wanted 12 weeks. They couldn't wrap their heads around 6 weeks. So we did, well, anyway, they had the way they're scheduled, they needed the 12 weeks anyway. So after the kids that came to my reading program were in the 10 to 20 percentile range. And after the 12 weeks, those without the music achieved the 40 percentile range, and those with the music achieved the 60 percentile range. And my report said that both made significant improvements. With the phonics reading program, significant gains were made, but additional significant improvement was made when music was added. Can you imagine that? So I'm going to move ahead a little bit here. I want to let you know that I took a 2-week intensive Orton Gillingham training program, and I'm currently in a practicum that's going to be taking 10 months so that I can be sure I am incorporating the best Orton Gillingham practices in my reading program, because nobody else uses music and I do. So I just want to be sure it's taught with fidelity. So my reading program has 9 steps. We have phonogram cards, sound circles, plastic letters. We read for 10 minutes when we use music. We do phonemic awareness called pre-reading, and we do phonological awareness here. We work in the workbooks twice for step 6 and step 8. And then we do a spelling test at the end of our tutoring sessions. My reading program has 9 beautiful, lovely books. I use the donut as my icon, because we spell donut D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T. And the OU sound has 5 ways we say it. And I think that's pretty profound. We don't spell it D-O-N-U-T. So step 1, we say the letter name, we say the picture, and then we say the sound. We would say A, X, A. That's how we introduce our letters. And here's some more. I like to teach the ch with the ch, the ch with the tch, because kids want to know, why is that T there? So we teach them early on. We teach them why ED has 3 sounds when it's a past tense. Sometimes it sounds like duh. Sometimes it sounds like ed, like I wanted. Or sometimes it sounds like tuh. And that's why they want to write the wrong letters, because they haven't been taught what past tense is. The same with plural. They haven't been taught that you add an S for a simple plural ES for other words like boxes, and it says ez, so it has a Z sound. So dyslexic kids have to be explicitly taught and with a lot of repetition. Here's some of the cards. I have 101 phonogram cards and 101 pictures. So step 2 is using sound circles, where you want this is really tiring on the student's brain because they're not seeing any letters. We use circles to represent the letter association. So for example, the word, for example, dug out. Right now we start with dug, but eventually we work with 2 syllables. So this could be dug out. So we always say the word and then we tap it out and say the sounds. Then we also say the sounds when we pull the circles down. So this would be d, g. And then we underline it and say dug. This would be, well, this won't be O-U-T because that would be O-U. That would be 2 oranges and they'd be on top of each other because they make one sound. And then you'd have the T, but we would say dug out. So this helps the child visualize OU makes one sound, ow. We have extra supports. We bring out our Unifix cubes to help get the visual. I like when we teach words with the long vowel sounds with the silent E. We have a white cube that represents the silent E. And then when we have QU and X, we bring out a black cube that represents the QU and the X. So step 3, we do plastic letters. Your scope and sequence tells you when to put each letter before each and after the vowel sounds. For example, this would be pa, ap, ep, p, ip, pa, up, pa, up. And so we do it with about 5 or 6 letters, and I spray the gold, the C and G gold, silver, so that the student remembers they have 2 sounds, a hard and a sound, hard and soft sound. This is self-explanatory. And we know dyslexic children are very intelligent. We do 10 minutes of phonics reading. That would look like this. Sometimes it changes the vowel. Sometimes it changes the beginning and ending sounds. This is where kids get hung up. So we're retraining the brain and creating those neural pathways to help them sound those words out. We do phonological awareness. We, again, say a word, tap out the sounds. And we do letter name and letter sound substitutions with the child. We've got beautiful workbooks. We have a junior workbook with larger font for up to 4th grade. And then 5th graders have the same content up to 36 pages, but it does have smaller font and it goes to 96 pages. Again, a little bit of phonological awareness. Step 8, we go into a senior workbook has more grammar rules to teach about comprehension, writing, sentence structure. So this is why kids really need to continue past 6 weeks to get some of that meat. We also have mini lessons. In my training, I give you the first mini lesson. We have 5 sets. For example, the E, I, and the Y, I use them like stones with the G and the C, which make the G and the C soft. And a little bit more goes into the training. So, and then the 9th step is the music app. Music plays in the left ear. It's beautiful classical music. I have 28 spelling exercises that, of course, get harder as they go along, and then 8 sentence groups. So what I offer is an affordable alternative to what some expensive programs are out there. Do I have your permission to share my Homeschool Reading Rescue with you? So the Homeschool Reading Rescue, I'm going to be providing my training videos for you so that you can view it on your own time. This would be for any adult interested in tutoring dyslexic children. for parents, teachers, paraprofessionals, substitute teachers, instructional aides, even college interns. What you're going to learn is about the Orton-Gillingham multisensory approach to teaching dyslexic kids. You'll demonstrate your understanding of structured literacy. You'll understand and explain my 9-step reading program. You'll understand the ways to teach phonological awareness, and you'll be able to recognize dyslexia in the classroom. And we need help right now across our nation to give these kids extra tutoring support. So you're going to be trained to help a lot more kids if you want that opportunity. The key benefits, where you're working, you may receive a pay raise for the training you're receiving. You'll be addressing our reading crisis, possibly keep someone out of prison. And I always like to know, I may be helping someone not commit suicide. You'll be making a difference in our reading crisis. So I have 6 videos for a total of 8 hours. We go through steps 1 through 4. Well, I go through the teacher guide. Let me back up. I go through the student binder and the teacher guide. I go through steps 1 through 4. And all these are on a I do, we do, you do model. And then we review steps 1 through 4. I teach you steps 5 through 7. We review steps 5 through 7. And then I teach you steps 8 and 9, and we review it in this Mastering Your Learning Outcomes. So these videos I normally sell for $997. I just got a quote today for to get the Wilson training for $2,500. So this is really a steal. So what this would include, the videos themselves are valued at $997. I'm going to be giving you a very special price now, though, with COVID and Christmas. I'm going to give you all my digital files for all the curriculum for $750, and they value $750. You can work with students online, or you can print them out if you prefer. So the teacher guide has teacher instructions, phonics, reading, and spelling exercises. The mini lessons, there's actually 5 groups with 6 activities in mini lesson 1. You get your Blackline Masters, you get a junior workbook and the senior workbooks, because you never know if you're going to want to use this with your younger children and your older children. You have 101 phonogram cards with the corresponding pictures called key concepts. So the total for that would be valued at $1,747, still cheaper than the competitor's training program that's offered today. I have extra bonuses to give you my book, A Message of Hope, How Music Enhances Reading for Dyslexic Children. This is sold by me, and it's on Amazon, and it's available on Barnes & Noble. It looks like this. Also, you're going to get my app for 2 months. It's called Dunking Dyslexia. Right now, it's available on iOS and Android, and it's critical to the success of this reading program. So my book, $15, the app, an additional $20. You are going to receive those digital files of my program, the digital files of the book as well, and then 2 months free of the app for extra bonuses of $35. So adding those $35, our new program value is $1,782. So I want to give you a special discount, because I'm going to give you a discount of $1,585 because I want your tuition to be $197. You're guaranteed results by the 2nd week. You're going to see more results after the 6 weeks. I have different payment options. You can pay me with a credit card, with PayPal. But I just want to add one more super bonus, because I want to give you a 30-minute coaching session, which is valued at $100. And in January, I'm going to call it a boot camp. 4 sessions that are going to be live training with me that would value at $197. It's going to be free for you, and it's going to be included in this tuition for you. I'm calling it the 4 C's to Embrace Dyslexia. And it's going to be 4 consecutive Thursdays from probably 1 to 2 in January. So that real-time value is $297. And I'm still giving it to you for $197. I hope that excites you. I'm just wanting to give this away free, but I know if you invest a little bit, it's going to mean so much more. And, you know, my gift to people is my talent, but I want to give it to you at an affordable, reasonable price. So again, there's ways you can pay through credit card. I want to put this in the chat. Let me close this out and put in the chat this information. Oops. Let me see if it's there. So here's the information. If you can save your chat